30 seconds. Okay, Ani, bonjour, everyone. Sorry for the delay to the folks here and all the folks kind enough to join us online. Chimigwech, hi for coming to this Earth Day teaching with Myeengun Henry and Lotunt Honyust. It's a real treat to have these men here today. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. I just wanted to say a couple things before we get started. We will have some time for question and answer at the end. Does that sound all right with you folks? So we'll let these folks talk for a while, and then we'll have time for question and answer. Just throw them in the chat if you're watching virtually, or if you're here. You could probably just yell them out or something. We'll figure that out when the time comes. But also for your awareness, this is being recorded. We'll have this on our website later so that you can refer back to it, refer to the teachings, and maybe share with your family or your little ones. Other than that, that's all I have, and I'll let these two get at it. Miigwech.
Yeah. Well, we'll figure this out, how we want to work this out. We are happy to be a part of your day today. Today's topic, I think, is very fitting. We're talking about the earth and how important it is. And I'm lucky today that I have a brother of mine here who's very close to our nation. We live right across from each other. There's a river that separates our nations, and we've known each other for many years. And I'm really happy to be able to bring these two nations together to talk about our stories that are very sacred. And in our way, you know, we know that they have to be told. And when you go across North America or Turtle Island, you'll hear various creation stories. You'll hear different, I guess, the diverse stories that we have. But it all, you know, when I think about it, leads to a very singular reason for being. Looking at our earth, how we are to provide our graces to the beautiful Mother Earth that we live on. And when I went to California and across North America, I heard different creation stories, but they all related back. The protocols were different, the language was different, the people that told the stories differently. But every time I left those creation stories, there was a unifying factor that we are the indigenous people of this land, and we were brought here for specific purposes. And our reason for being here is monumental in terms of our role to keep our Mother Earth as healthy as possible. So I'm really happy to come and be a part of this evening with you. And I come from a place called Deshkanzibi. I guess in an English term, we would say Chippewas of the Thames, but that's really a word we're trying to get away from now, because even the word Chippewa was a word that was mispronounced as the settlers heard us saying Ojibwe. They were hearing Chippewa, and I guess they made us name our nation that when they created the Indian Act and made us name our nation. So Chippewas of the Thames is what we're known for, but we are now changing, and we're in the process of changing to Deshkanzibi, which is the river that flows right next to our nation. And Deshkanzibi means antler river. And if you took a flight above the river, you would see the river shaped like an antler, a deer antler. It's got different ways, a north and the south and the east. And that's what we're named after. My name is Myeengun. I come from that nation. And my role, I guess, here at the university is the Indigenous Knowledge Keeper for the Faculty of Health. But I work in various capacities at the university. And I work in various capacities in our communities too. I was the elected chief of our nation. I'm in my 5th term as band counselor, but I also do traditional work that I support various communities in traditional ceremonies that I do. And so it keeps me busy along with my family and grandkids. They keep me very busy. And so it's a busy time in life right now, trying to build a better consciousness in Canada, especially for our youth, to hear our traditional stories and to see who we are as the Indigenous people of this land and know the stories that are very important to us. So that's a little bit about me. I'd like to pass the mic over to my friend Lotunt.
Miigwech yawanko. What korana hela du ne homadu ne pagadat ya thowe ne gan thone ga ne wa hisla de ne haga gwe ni ne nai wat thun dadi ne jit nyut chi ne thunu ne vi ga ne jini dwa no da se ne jit na de ne wa hani lo ne ning wa sutsla ne vi ga ne ji jo da sama ne ji honjat ne ge vi ga ne oni ne hona ne wa hisla de ne wa hisli qua nhiều ý hoặc nisli này cái skid uy cái ca nên điều soát sli ô này atsten qua này vi cái ca này haga quay ni này yoda halo de này vi cái ca này hayama squee này vi cái ca skana này I don't know tu ni này cái vi cái ca này oni này hona này aga de nyan này dagli wate do này chỉ nhớ chỉ này wahani lo này những wasot ne aga gwe ni ne skana ne nice one doni Lotunt Honyust wage kwa honi wagita loda oni ote aga ni wago honjot kanu kwe nyo duni wakoji lot ne oni chini wali hoda nu wagyo de ne kili hunyani he ne yung waksa da ne chini dwawano da ne ngwa ne oni ne Oyachi te down ne vi ka ne de zong kwa da ze ne vi ka ne yodo gong ta hadi ne vi ka ne hona ne gai ni wasajada na te go slia e giskid vi ka ne wagat sanu ni ne wa du ne wagat ya thwe ne ka ne wa ni sla de da ne to na to hage ne yung kwa ni go. Hello everyone, my name is Lotunt Honyust. I come from Oneida Town, also known as Oneida of the Thames First Nation. What we refer to our community where we come from, we call it Honyust. And that literally translates, I guess, to the place of the Honyust people. That's what we refer to ourselves as, is Honyust. That word, Honyust, that kind of, it's kind of similar, I guess, to what you translate Anishinaabe to, like being the original people. And that's what we refer to ourselves as the original people, or even the real people, I guess, you know, the true people. That's the way that that word is interpreted. So I come from the Wolf clan. I'm 47 years old. I said I just celebrated a birthday the other day, 47 winters that I've crossed over. So we're just coming into our springtime now. And, you know, so this month that we're in, that's the moon that we call this in our language. We refer to this as the thundering moon. And that's the month that I was born in. So I always kind of have a really strong connection, I guess, to, in our language, we say that our grandfathers, Yeti Sutta. And the other day we went to a thunder dance ceremony in Six Nations. And that's what they do there. Is there's a ceremony that they have and a dance that they have to give thanks and acknowledge the returning of the thunders. And so in my community, I work with our young people, and my responsibility that I have is to help teach them our language, to teach them our culture, our songs, our medicines, all the things of what we have, who we are as Honyust people, to try and give them a better understanding of who we are as Honyust people. And it's really easy to get lost, you know, in this world that surrounds us. You know, both of our communities, a lot of our young people, they struggle with that, you know, with the loss of identity, loss of language, loss of culture because of colonization. So I guess the school where we work, or where I work, I guess, and my coworkers where we work, that's kind of like our mandate, is decolonization of our young people. to bring them back to a good place, a good understanding of who we are as Myeegun people. And so I guess this evening, that's what we're going to be talking about, is our understanding of what the older people, what they talked about. They say when the earth was new, when things began here, the way that things began here on the earth. And, we're coming up to Earth Day in a couple days. And so that's kind of what they thought about here, was that it would be good to talk about how we as human beings, how we relate to this creation. What is that relationship that we have with creation? And so I think that's going to be our main focus here this evening, and we're going to be referring back to our creation stories, to draw from that. So that's a little bit about who I am, where I come from, where I work, and
Miigwech.
Yeah.
I guess with our time, we'll kind of split the time with a couple of stories that we have, and to share some knowledge with you. And so maybe I'll start this way. Our Earth is really talking to us, and we need to respond today. We've seen devastation throughout the world, and a lot of times it's because of our own neglect of our responsibilities. So I think what needs to happen sometimes is we have to go back to our original stories. We have to remind people about our responsibilities on this earth while we're here. We know by statistics that our people don't really live that long. We do have elders who live way into their 90s and 100s sometimes, but in general, our people leave this earth quite early. And it really makes it even more important for us to be able to deliver these stories, because how many funerals I've done in the last 10 years of people under 50, we're still searching for their spirit name, their clan, and their colors, and the things that makes them feel that relationship to this beautiful place we call Earth. And so today, as we embark on this journey to share this knowledge, it's really about the essence of love that comes from the spirit that Creator gave us. And our elders, who at various times in our history made it very important for us to know that, to know your creation story, to know your spirit name and clan and colors is in language is probably one of the most important things that you'll have to know on this earth while you're here. And as I sat with elders of our communities, maybe just learning their culture sometimes, because they were, I guess, interrupted through about 100 years of residential schools in this country, that made it impossible for us to practice our language and ceremonies because they outlawed them here in this country. But there were people that defied those strangleholds that the country was putting on our people, and they would go into places in secrecy and practice our language and ceremonies. And they would recall all the things that was necessary for us to know, and make sure that it was never lost, even though I think in our spirit, Creator has gifted us with those things that we need to know, like our language, like our ceremonies. Even if we don't know how to bring that out, it's implanted in us as a gift from our Creator. And if you go on this journey of finding these things, it'll become a lot clearer to you once you start walking on that road of culture and language, because something of comfort will start demonstrating itself to you. The more you sit with the elders, the more comfortable you get hearing the way that they speak, and you start delivering that within your own spirit, and it starts coming through. You go to a ceremony, or you go to a gathering with elders, and something builds within you. It starts to grow, and you start to feel comfortable with it. You start maybe saying a few words in your language, maybe just numbers or something. And then you graduate to a point where you start feeling a lot more comfortable using languages that you didn't even know where it comes from. And I can tell you that very clearly because I've been into hospitals when our elders were traveling back to Creator's World, and they start speaking the language. The families are surprised because they never spoke that language in their lifetime, but it was in there. And that's why I know that Creator gifted us with these beautiful things. And it takes an inspiration sometimes to allow ourselves to recall what Creator has gifted us with. And I know when we have children and grandchildren, and I know this very clearly with my children and grandchildren, they sparked me to want to know more about the culture that my parents couldn't give me because they went to schools like residential schools. And as I became more comfortable with them, knowing that I needed to teach some things to them while I'm on this earth, I think our spirit came true. And it very clearly told me that I can learn these things and I can practice these things because Creator gifted them to me. And then when I found out that I was able to do these things, the world just opened its ears and eyes for me to finally define who I am as an Anishinaabe person. And I kept going back to the elders who shared with me over and over the stories that we refer to in our way of creation. And I know some of the ceremonies that we go to, they won't let you take a pen and paper. They say that those stories are meant to be taught to you in your heart. And if you bring a paper, sometimes you'll change it of how you interpreted it. And you deliver that to people who might not get the original story. So they say if you have a hard time remembering the stories, you come back again and they'll tell you again. And if you don't remember again, come back again. And by the time you're there 5 or 6 times, you start to get to know this story quite well. And it becomes very clear to you that you've connected to it. And that's why that's the question I get from young people today is I don't have time to learn my language. I don't have time to sit at sweat lodge ceremonies or other ceremonies that we have because I have a busy lifestyle. I have children, I have bills to pay. But I think this is where we can interact with each other in this capacity is by allowing that spirit within you to find that emphasis of time that's in you. And it becomes a lot more clearer to you, these teachings they're very old. And even the language that we have today, we've changed it quite to meet today's living standards that we have. We never had words for telephone and computers and things like that, but we've made up names now for these. But if you relate back to even those words, they come from older words that reflect on something more literal to what we're talking about. And when I think about that, it's become very clear to me that when it all transpires and we all have this relationship to ourselves, it all becomes very clear now that spirit is talking to me and wanting me to know these things. So tonight we're sitting in a very high tech room with a lot of different things, but it doesn't matter how much technology we have in front of us. You still have what a Creator gave you originally, which is your heart, your spirit, your body, your mind, and all these beautiful things. And that takes you back even further to where it all began and how we are supposed to pass this knowledge on for generations to come. And I think back to the elders who have now moved on to the spirit world in my world. They've come to me various times in other ways. When I see the sunshine outside, and when I see the wind and the water and the breeze, it tells me that those spirits that taught me are still here, encouraging me to learn more and to walk this path within myself, so I can pass knowledge on to my my grandchildren, and other children in this world to know these things. And so we're here tonight thinking about these things in the best manner we can. I think you're here to learn, maybe to share, to walk away tonight with a little closer view of what our relationship on this earth should be. And so I'd like to start this way. I always say, Bujo Myeengun Indej Nakaz Deshkan Zibi and Onjabap Myeengun Dodem, Getche Monado, Chimigwech Minwa, Kakinaman, the Ganaju and Gijket Nungum, Getche Monado, Chimigwech Minwa, Kakinawasiak Mampi, Getche Monado, Chimigwech, Kakinawasiak Ni John Sananik, Getche Monado, Gigido Endaso Gijgat and Anishinaabe Moin, Getche Monado, Chimigwech Minwa, Kakinawasiak Mampi, Kinomage wa began jawanang epignishmuk kiwade nung chimigwech gojamnado manda kakinawasiak manda mashkiki osama wingashk mashko de wishk minwagijik getchimanado chimigwech minwa kakinawasiak mampi getche mazak mikwe. In those words, I shared a little bit about our four directions, the ones that keep knowledge from various parts of this world we live in. And when we call the spirit from those four directions, it helps me to recall the stories, because when I think back to our original creation story, it came from a very precise moment and a precise heartbeat that our Creator had so lovingly surrounded the atmosphere in. They say that our creation began in 7 stages. And our elders always talked about the 7 fires that we know as the path forward to life as we know it today. And it's gone through various times of eons of times between the fires that we now come to know. And when those fires were generated, each one brought a new substance to earth and how it was to be in a perfect way that our Creator had always planned it to be. And when I think about that, it now reminds me that there's an important message within each fire that we lived in. And those fires give us that chance to recall those specifics of who we are and how we came to be. There's a couple other stories that come from our nations. We can have a few variances in the stories that we've come to know, but the grounding piece of that is we've all become a participant on this earth to generate the things that Creator wanted us to do. And this is why it's so important. So in the amount of time that I have with you, there would never be enough time to tell our whole creation story. It could take days to go through our creation story in the way it was meant to be. And we still have our ceremonies where we take the time and we celebrate life through those stories that our elders tell us. But because today's time, we have a very little bit of time to do that. And this is, well, I'm at a university now. So I guess most of you online and here have learned how to write and I guess gain knowledge through a system that's been developed here. I want to, in the time that I have, take you on a little bit of a journey that's a little bit different from how you've learned in school, the way that we're sitting right now. Our journey is a spiritual transfer of knowledge. It becomes very clear when you start to feel that knowledge flowing through you in a very spiritual way. And so we always do it this way. We take you on this little journey, and it's a journey that brings us back to our originality. The elders would gather people together. If you know your clan, you would kind of meet with your clan members. But if you don't, we always have a clan that will accept you to be a part of their clan until you come to know your own clan. So we would meet early, sometimes in the morning. And I don't know if you guys are early birds or not, but Some people like to get up real early in the morning. And if I can get you out of this building, we'll go outside and we'll make it a really nice day, just a comfortable day that just is a nice summer day. And I don't know how many people like camping, but we're going to actually go on a little camping trail. What I'll do is my name is Myeengun, and what I do is I've been given a responsibility to tell this story, to guide you as a wolf would do. And Myeengun means wolf in our language. So a wolf, if you can kind of picture a wolf, people are scared of them sometimes because they can be very fierce, but they also be very accommodating. If you look at them with their families, they protect them and they nourish them and they give them love and support. And that wolf that we understand to be is very special in our history, because we were told when we came to the earth originally, the wolf was told to walk the earth with the first human that came here and do the naming of the waters and the trees and the plants. And they were to live side by side for that time period and come back to the point where they started. And after the time of naming, they came back to that point, and Creator said that we have to separate you now because you have different stories and you have different teachings, and we can't bring those together right now because humans are going to be scared of that wolf and wolves are going to be scared of humans sometimes. And so we have to kind of keep this separate for a little while. One day we'll bring these two creatures back together again, but the time isn't right for that right now. And we know that today by our powwows, we don't allow dogs who's a member of that wolf family to come into the arena. So we still practice some of these things today. But when we were told that this story had to be told, we went around and named all the plants and animals. And we were able to find these in our lifetime. So now that it's early in the morning, the sun isn't even up yet, we're going to travel to this little mountain range. And I want you to picture this in your mind a little bit. We're going to go to this little mountain. On top of it, there's a place that has been designated as a place to do our ceremonies. And as we come to this point, maybe you don't know each other. Maybe you are just a group of people that want to learn something today. But we come together on this mountain and we'll go to this one particular point. And what we'll do is we'll wait for a moment in time that's very special, that happens every single day. And it's a time when our sun starts to shine. This is when we know that we're in the start of our sunrise ceremonies. We wake up in the morning and we were given this time of day to reflect on a responsibility that's right in for your eyes. You're watching your grandmother who looked after you last night transfer responsibility over to Father Son. And when Father Son is given that responsibility, we have things to do during the time that Father Son comes into our day. Father Son will bring the sunshine, bring the warmth. And during that time, we as humans use that time to do our work, our chores, the things that we're supposed to be doing during that time. But we give thanks to that grandmother for giving us protection overnight. And we think about that, we turn to her. And when we do, I'm gonna get everybody to stand up for a second if you can. I know this chair are all squeaky and everything. And we're gonna face, where is the eastern direction right now? We're in east, actually we're facing the east now. So this is the way we would honor that beautiful sunrise in the morning. And we would ask that Grandmother Moon give us that chance to explore our life in the best way that we've come to know. So we give thanks to that beautiful sunrise that if you can imagine in your own mind, when the sun comes up, you see the crescent of that beautiful sunlight coming over the horizon. And when it becomes very clear to you that the sun is arising, we take that moment of solitude to remember that we are participants on this earth and Creator is showing us responsibility by giving us this transaction of responsibility from Grandmother Moon to Father Sun. So we give thanks to that Father Sun that is here now. And we give thanks to our grandmother in a way that we give our thoughts and our song for her. So we share her this song. It's a thank you song. Way hey hey hi way hey hey way hey hey ha way hey hey ho hey hi hey ho hey way hi yo way hi yo hey hey ho hey way hey hey hi ya way hey hey way hey hey ha way hey hey ho hey hi hey ho hey way hi yo way hi hey ho hey. And then we save the last version or the last verse of this song for those who have traveled in that western direction to Creator's world. All of our grandmothers and grandfathers and loved ones who have left this earth. They say that the drum that we use in our ceremonies are reflective of our Mother the Earth's heartbeat. And then at a time when Creator decides that we are to travel back to Creator's world, the first thing Creator does, it takes our heartbeat away. And we separate our physical body from our spiritual body. And we give thanks to those who have done this already, the loved ones that we have that are in Creator's world. We say thank you to them because they're still sending their inspiration and love to us. And we honor them today by the final verse of this song that requires no drum beat. Way hey hey hi way hey hey way hey hey ha way hey hey ho hey hi hey ho hey way hi yo way hi hey ho hey way hey hey yo. Bujo Myeengun and Haudenosaunee, Deshkan Zibe non Jabab, Myeengun know them. Chimigwech, Kajam Nado, Wabanung. You know, in our eastern direction, we say thank you. We ask that those that traveled to that spirit world today, our loved ones, we thank them and give them our wishes that we still care for them and that they give us a chance to know that we still love each other, even though we're separated in physical being. So in sunrise ceremony, we give this thanks and remind ourselves of the responsibility of our journey on this earth. So thank you for joining me in this part of the morning. You can turn around and join us again to this direction. I'll take you down the mountain now for a second. You guys have a seat. I'm going to take you down the mountain that we were just on. And as we go down the mountain, you're going to start to see all those things that I talked about, all those other beings that are on the earth, the ones who crawl on the earth, the ones who still fly from tree to tree, those beautiful birds and rabbits and snakes, you know, that Creator put on this earth. So we get a chance to see them as we travel down this little road that's going to take us down the hill here. And as we get down to the bottom of the hill, I'm gonna point in your direction a little tiny village that's been put together, and there's a structure that's built there. If you ever seen a longhouse before, it's kind of similar to that. It's a lodge that was built, and it can accommodate a number of people. And this lodge has been put together because the ceremony is going to take place, and they wanted people to come into this lodge and to maybe learn something today. And so this lodge doors are faced in the east and west direction. We enter in the eastern direction into this lodge. This lodge becomes a place that's I guess, comfortable in a way that we're sitting on our mother, the earth. This lodge was built by beautiful hands of knowledgeable people. But as we enter the door of this lodge, I'm going to motion you to come into the lodge for a second. But there's a man standing by the door. And this man is a little bit, looked like you can tell he's gone through a hard time in his life. His face is showing that he's been through some hardship. And he's a little scary, you know, to tell you the truth. He looks like he's been through a battle in his life. But he's carrying a little bowl. And this bowl has something in it. And he motions you to take some of that as you go near him. You're a little bit weary to go by him just because of how he looks, and it's a little bit kind of unnerving a little bit because you don't know him, and he just has this really aura of hardship about him. But you take my advice and go near him and take some of the medicine that he has in a bowl for you and hold it in your hand. As we bend down and we travel into this lodge, it's almost like we have to bow to get in there, but we have to bend our backs in order to get in this lodge. As we do, along the edge of this lodge, you'll see remnants of people that are in the corners here and then along the sides. And they all are wearing certain things, like maybe something like this medallion. And this is a wolf. Maybe all the people in this one section are wearing things similar to a wolf beadwork or something to do with that. As you walk around the inside of that lodge, you'll find 7 components. And there are 7 different animals that are honored within this lodge. 7 original clans of the Anishinaabe people are in this lodge. And the families that belong to those clans sit in that one section of that lodge. But as you go toward the back of the lodge, you'll notice that the doorway in the eastern direction has been closed. There's no access to that door. The only door that you have is the one you came in from the eastern direction, and there's a reason for that. They say that that door is only used when a person travels back to the spirit world. So we have funerals in our lodges, and we open that door, and they leave the lodge through that western direction. And that's the only time we ever use the western door in this lodge. And as you walk around and see all the different lodge families, they welcome you and they give you, I guess from their own heart, a welcoming that feels like you belong here, that you are welcome here. And as you walk back toward the front, you'll find a fire that was put in the center of the lodge. And if you actually look at the smoke of this fire, it's designed to not build smoke in this lodge. You know, if you ever go into a place and it's all smoky, it's uncomfortable. But this lodge has been engineered by our elders a long time ago, and they know the wind that comes in from the sides of that lodge will push that smoke up to the smoke hole out in the top. So you're not uncomfortable in at all inside this lodge. You just feel like it's been designed for your comfort. And as we come in and sit down by the fire, we ask everybody to have a seat. And as you sit down, you're a little bit nervous because maybe you've never been in a lodge like this, and maybe the people that you've seen, are kind of, you just have questions about what they're wearing and things like that. But sit down by this, in front of this fire, surround this fire, and as you do, 2 people are going to come into the lodge the way that we came in, a young female and a young male. And they'll come in and the little boy, the young boy, will pass around a cup to every one of you. And as you have that cup in your hand, the young girl, Kwezants in our language, Skinikwe, will come and pour something into those cups for you. And as you notice in the smell of that, it's like a tea. And you've noticed it before, but you don't really know what it is right now. But if you think about it, if you've ever been in a bush and walked by a cedar tree, that tree becomes very evident. It emits a beautiful medicinal smell. The aroma is so beautiful. And if you boil it in a tea, it makes your house smell so nice. And if you put it in a cup and drink it, it's medicine. It'll push toxins out of your body. It'll give you a healing within that is so tremendous that when you drink it, you can feel it so beautifully. This medicine goes into your system, and we feel that beautiful cedar tea going through our system, and it tastes really good too. It's really a beautiful tea to have. And as these young people give you that tea, you hold it and you have a drink of it, and it's really comforting to have that. And as you're sitting there, two other people come into the lodge. An older gentleman and a older female, we call them Nokomis and Mishomis, which is our grandmother and grandfather. They come into the lodge and they sit in the lodge with you and they welcome you into the circle. They say, welcome to this lodge. This is a lodge today that we're going to sit together in a very beautiful way because we have something to tell you. And so the grandmother, Nokomis, gets up and she's welcomes you. She's dressed so nice. Her hair is done really nice. You can tell she spent some time making that beautiful skirt that she has on. The clothes that she's wearing is just beautiful. And her kindness in her face is just tremendous. You just feel like she's your grandmother. She welcomes you to the circle and she says, I heard you were at sunrise ceremony this morning and I was there with you as you watched Grandmother Moon transfer that responsibility over to Father Son. So you didn't see me, but I was there with you. My heart and my spirit was with you as you went to that ceremony. And she said, I'm so honored that you were able to give thanks at sunrise this morning and you're able to come into our lodge today. And so she said, I want to introduce you to my counterpart here. He's Mishomis, he's grandfather. And his grandfather stands up, he thanks the grandmother, and she says, you know, this is something that we want to bring to you. So Mishomis stands up and he says, I want to tell you something, that there's an original story of how humans came to the earth, but I'm going to tell you the second part of that story today. It's a time when after humans came to the earth, we were doing so well. The earth, all of its co-tenants lived together really, really great. We shared knowledge. We helped each other. We built alliances with each other because we needed each other. And then over time, the human beings started feeling like they were a little bit more superior to all the other parts of creation. And when the human beings started doing that, we started separating ourselves from our responsibility and other parts of creation. And we started making a thought that we were more powerful than them and smarter than them. And so humans, as they are, they even started doing that within their own communities. They started arguing about thoughts and ideas and moving to different segments, separating them and us. Human beings were actually dividing from themselves. And as they did that, they even started fighting with each other. They went to war over things. They separated themselves and they started owning things, and they felt that they were more powerful because they had more people in their sections, and the world just started becoming a little bit more deteriorated because of humans' interaction and losing of their own understanding. And as that happened, we come to know that when our Creator seen this, it was very clear that that wasn't what Creator sent the humans to the earth to do. And Creator said that if this continues, we're going to make some changes. And this is what our elders would tell us. They said that Creator started the waters to come from Creator's world, started flooding this earth, and all the little crawling beings and the little animals that were small perished. The water started coming up higher and higher, and even the larger animals were getting drowned because the water was filling the earth. And as that happened, even the trees, the water started going over the trees. And there were some humans who lived on the higher ridges, the mountains on the earth. They would climb to the top of that mountain. And there's one in particular in our stories. We hear about this spiritual being. He's half human and half spirit. And his name is Wananabujo in our language. We call him Nanabush. You've heard him in different ways, but he's the story keeper. He's the one it was brought to the earth when it was originally created. And he's walked on this earth with us for time immemorial. And as he did, he was there when this flood came, and the flood started building up to the mountaintop where he was standing. And he actually asked Creator what I can do, because now that all the humans have perished and the animals and there's nothing left, he asked that Creator give him an inspiration, and he decided to gather some of the trees and the twigs that were floating in the water and built himself a raft. And he got on that raft, and then the mountain got covered. So he was only him on the raft. And there were some birds that could fly that would land on the raft with him, and some of the fish and some of the other animals that were aquatic animals were with him. But he was told that in his mind, what do I do now? The earth is gone. I have no food. There's nothing that I can do. And he remembers that the earth was created from a little piece of soil. It actually became what it is, what we understand earth to be today. And that soil was brought together, and this goes back to the old creation story about how it came to be, to the spirit and heartbeat of our mother, of our Creator. And so he thought if he would be able to swim to the bottom of this flood and gather some of that soil, maybe Creator would be kind enough to rebuild this earth again. So he went down into the water and he swam for a long time, and he wasn't able to get to the bottom. Out of breath, he came back up and found his raft, and he wasn't able to gather some of the other animals that were near him. One of them was a bird. Have you ever heard of a bird called a hell diver before? It's a bird that can go in the water and it hunts and it can come back out. And he can go in quite deep. And he asked that it would be his turn to go and find some of that soil. So he went, and he wasn't able to get to the bottom. Another animal that was near them, a turtle actually was near. He said, I live in the water. This is how I survive. He said, I can swim to great depths. And if I can get to the bottom, maybe some of that soil I can recover and bring it back, and maybe Creator will recreate this land again. So turtle, Mushike in our language, went down and wasn't able to come back up. He was out of breath when he came up, and when Anabujo went and comforted him and gave him a chance to rest. And over time, other animals did, but this one here, I brought him here. He was sitting on the raft, and a little bit, I don't know if you know what these are. This is an otter, actually. They're really playful. If you ever see them out in the water, they're like kids, right? They're out there and they play, they goof around, they hide on you, and they're a lot of fun animals. And they're not really known as powerful, strong animals. They are, but they don't look like it. But as the turtle came up, the otter said, I'd like to see if I can go down and get some of that soil. The other Nanabujo and the other animals kind of laughed at him. They said, well, I don't know, you don't look very strong. Maybe if we give you a chance, see what you can do. So the otter went into the water and was gone for a little bit longer than they thought. They were waiting for him because all the other animals came up, bubbles came up, and they were able to recover them. But the otter was down in the water a little bit longer than they thought, and they were worried about him. And so a little while later, they seen these little bubbles come up out of the water, and then when Anabujo went over and found out that this otter was coming up. And so he went and grabbed him, and he was really weak. He was just like this. He was like, his body was limp. He was just like unresponsive. Like you can tell that, he was in the water too long. And as that happens, he was in too long. And so when Anabujo said, I think the otter isn't going to survive He could see his eyes were dilated, his body was motionless. And he said, I think this is the time that our otter is going to go back to Creator's world. And so during this time, and this still happens today, when somebody is moving on back to that spirit world, there's a song that we sing. It's a travel song that we offer at that time. But you can imagine, even in this song, that spirit leaving the otter's body. Had a strong heartbeat to start as he went into the water. But as he was holding him, the heartbeat became fainter and fainter. And as that spirit went back to Creator's world during this song, he knew that the otter had given his life. Way-ya, hey-ya, hey, hi-ya, hey-ya, 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 way-ya, hey-ya, hey, ha, way-ya, hey-ya, hey-ya, ho, hey, hi-ya, hey-ya, ho, hey, way-ya, hi-yo, way-ya, hi-ya, hey-ya, hey-ya, ho, hey, way-ya, hey-ya, hey, hi-ya, way-ya, hey-ya, hey-yo, way-ya, hey-ya, hey, ha, way-ya, hey-ya, hey-ya, ho, hey, hi-ya, hey-ya, ho, hey, way-ya, hi-yo, way-ya, hi-ya, hey-ya, hey-ya, ho, hey. You can almost feel that spirit left that otter's life. And so when Anabujo said that this little otter, he gave his life. And so we're going to put him back into the water and let his body go back to Mother Earth. But as he was doing it, he noticed in his paw there was a little bit of soil. So he took that soil. He said, you know what? That otter sacrificed his life for us, went to the bottom of that flood and brought that soil back up. And so we'll take that soil, we'll hold it, and we'll ask if Creator will rebuild this earth again, just like it was originally. And as he was holding that soil, the winds from the four directions came. And they blew on that soil and it started growing. It started building a place where when Anabujo was able to get off the raft and get back onto this little island that was created. And other little animals, they came that were able to survive, jumped on that little island, and they did the first round dance on that little piece of island, and the earth started growing. And we were able to recover that earth again over time. But this time with a clear message that if we ever decide to feel we're superior than everything else on this earth again, another time may come when Creator will take this earth from us. And so I think we're living in that time now where we have to really think about our actions as we walk on this earth today, to think about how we need to respect our Mother the Earth, to make sure that she's healthy, to don't rob from her all that she has, because she has much and she still feeds us every day. She gives us trees for fire. She gives us water for life. She gives us a place to stand while we walk on this earth for the time we're here. And she loves us, every one of us, and all the other animals on this earth. So we're living on the earth right now and we're mistreating her again. And now the elders are saying, you know, we need to know our stories, because humans need to start being more responsible. And we have to start treating her and each other with more respect than we do today. And so that's the story that the grandfather and grandmother wanted to tell you in the circle today. They brought you into the lodge. They brought you through the sunrise ceremony. And as you came into the lodge, everybody took some medicine. That was tobacco. That was one of our sacred medicines that we carry. And as you were holding it, it was it was generating knowledge about you. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that medicine and put it in the fire and send our prayers to Creator to maybe, hopefully, have a better world for all of us. Going forward, now that we know the story, maybe we can all start working on it. So we all stand up in the lodge and we shake each other's hand in a circle, and we go outside of that lodge again. We bend down and we go outside the lodge again. And that man that was there, that was scary looking, doesn't seem as scary anymore. Now you know that, we all gone through struggles, and it shows on our demeanor. And we have this time in our life when we can look at each other from a very loving way now. And that's what our ceremonies do. They give you that way of seeing life in a way that maybe we forgot, and tells us that we have a responsibility to care for each other, to love each other, to walk this earth with brotherhood and sisterhood as long as we're here. We don't know how long that will be. But today, as you came into the lodge and you were able to hear the story, it's one that we pass from generation to generation. We give our chance to know these things by sitting in our family circles, in our community circles. When we sit with an elder or talk with knowledge keepers, we pass the story along, among many others. But because it's Earth Day coming, we have to think about that beautiful Mazak Mikwe in our language, the earth that gives us all the beautiful things of life. And let's all take a moment in our own time to give thanks to all those elders of the past, the ones who joined us in our ceremony at sunrise, the ones who came to you and in the circle, and the clans that were around the edge of that lodge, and the fire that kept you warm, and the smoke that found its way outside, and the man that was standing by the door. So this is a day of understanding and learning about these beautiful things that we as brothers and sisters need to know. So like I said, our creation story can take days, but I wanted to condense it down to a time that we have, because you're going to hear another story from another beautiful storyteller here that Lotunt is. I'm just honored to be in his presence when he comes to our community and I visit him. And when he's coming to places where I work, I'm just honored for that, because very smart, knowledgeable, and respectful and honest man here that I'm sitting next to, and I'm honored to be a friend of yours. So miigwech for coming, Lotunt, and I'll pass the mic over to you at this time.
Yeah. Nè cái uy cái có nè hôm na nè cái định nhàn đó nè uy cái có nè đặc biệt thế đó nè chỉ nhớ chi nè và hani đó nè những quát sốt nè chỉ nhớ chi nè chỉ cho đắt sao nè chỉ huân chát nè cái uy cái có nè ở nè họ vàoดูnèเด็กเด็กเสนเนี่ยจีนีกาวโนดเสนนงโกเนี่ยฮะเนี่ยธนูเนี่ยวิกัยก็เนี่ยโอซุนิเกเนี่ยจียุชีเนี่ยธนูเนี่ยสวัสดิกุลายอันดัสเนี่ยยากกวยนี่สกานาเนี่ยไนซ์นะตัวนี้เนี่ยกิดวิกัยก็เนี่ยนี่จียุชีเนี่ยวิกัยก็เนี่ยธนูเนี่ยว่าฮันนี่หล่นเนี่ยยิงว่าสุดสละเนี่ยการอยู่นะเนี่ยเวลาวิสต์เนี่ยดัสก็เวลาวันนี้เนี่ยจีหุ่นจาเดเนี่ยหัวดูเนี่ยยิงคิโลลิฮัดีเนี่ยวิกัยก็เนี่ยจีนชีเนี่ยธนูเนี่ยว่าฮันนี่หล่นเนี่ยยิงว่าสุดเนี่ยวิกัยก็เนี่ยหัวหน้าเนี่ยชิคาฮาวีเนี่ยกุงกุยเต้เนี่ยวิกัยก็เนี่ยสุกุงกุยเนี่ยอุสโนฮาเนี่ยวิกัยก็เนี่ยโยโทเลยัตส์เนี่ยนี่Segungui ne viga ikane ne yo vela visto ne daskawela wali ne jiu hunjat ne viga ikane ne aga guini ne viga ikane ne ayin watundadi ne viga ika ne okala ne viga ikane ne okala soha ne jiu chi ne tanu ne ladi hawi se ne ni wasots ne viga ikane ne hona ne Agadinya do nevi kai ka ne dagli watte ne chi ne wa hani lo ne wa sots da ne to na to hage ne wa ni go. So I guess I just want to start and explain some of the things that what I heard our older people say about these things. And what they always told us is they said that when we're living and we're connected, I guess, to creation, they say that and what that means is it means that the Creator intended that there was going to be two kinds of winds here on the earth. And they say, and so the first wind is the cold winds that blows here on the earth during the cold months. And the warm winds that also circulate here on the earth. And last week we kind of got teased a little bit with that warm weather that we had. And this week and the last couple of days, it kind of brought us back to reality. And it's been snowing a little bit here and there. And what our older people, what they tell us is they said that to be mindful of that when we're telling stories, because they say that the time that we're coming to now is that we're coming to our planting time. And they say that our food, our junhekwa, the corn and the beans and the squash, that they have spirit too, just like how we have spirit. And they say that when our people are telling these stories, like what we're hearing tonight, they say they like to hear that too. They like to hear our stories. And all those different things that the Creator planted here on the earth for our benefit, for our use. The trees, the medicine plants, the animals, all those things, they say they have spirit too. And they say they all like to come forward and to listen to when these stories are being told. Because then it gives them that peace of mind to know that we still remember them. But what they say is that a lot of these things that they have responsibility. And just the last little while, what we say the leader of the trees is the maple tree. And that maple tree, it produced sap. And in our community where we live, that's what we done, is that we went out and we harvested that sap and we boiled it down. We made syrup, maple syrup. And so they say that that's kind of like the start, after our midwinter ceremonies. That's the first thing that comes to us after that time, when we say the earth is going to start going back the other way now, towards that warm weather. And so that's what they say, that when these things are going on, that if we start telling stories when all these things are starting to happen and the earth is waking up, then they say that the spirit of those things will come. And then they get neglectful of their responsibility, of their duties to creation. And so that's what the older people, they tell us, that to be mindful, that when we're doing these kinds of things, that the time when we really do that is, they say, that when it's snowing out, that's when we're supposed to be inside. And then that's when the older people, then that's when they teach the younger people, because we're spending more time inside, the days are shorter, and we spend the majority of our time inside instead of being outside, and doing the kind of work that we're needing to do. And so now that's what we're doing, is we're getting ready to do our planting. And that's what the older people say, is that when we put those seeds in the ground, and we plant those three sisters, that we shouldn't tell stories anymore. Because then what we're going to do is that we're going to take their spirit away from the gardens, because they're going to want to come to listen to these stories. And then we take that energy, we take that power away from our gardens. And everything else that helps to contribute, to the growth of that garden, all those things want to come forward and they want to listen too. And so that's what the older people say, is they say that when we come to that time, when the warm winds, when they start to circulate here on the earth, that's when we stop telling stories, until that time comes after our harvest is finished in the fall and the weather starts to change and it gets cold on us again, then we can start telling stories again. So they say that there's a balance in creation. Like I said, there's two kinds of winds. There's the daytime, there's the nighttime. There's the cold weather, there's the warm weather. and then just like what he was talking about, those two doors in the lodge, there's life, there's death. All those kinds of things are represented, in these teachings that we have. And so as I was listening to my relative here, I was just thinking about a few years back, probably about 15 years ago or longer now. It might have been before my son was born. He's 15 now. So it might have been maybe about 17 years ago. But we used to have a healing lodge in Muncie. So where we live, there's 3 communities. We got 2 of them, here today, but there's really 3 communities, where we come from. There's Chippewa, and then there's Muncie, and then there's Oneida. So there's 3 of us there, all living together. And in the community of Muncie, there was a healing lodge there, and they called it Kikiwanakan. And my partner, my wife, she used to work there. She was a counselor. And one day she came home and she says, my boss wants to talk to you. And she said, there's a guy, he's up from near Winnipeg, Manitoba. And he came to the lodge there to get help. And she said, but where he came from, way up north there by Manitoba, he said he brought something. And he wants to talk to somebody that knows about this thing, what he brought. So I said, okay, well, I'll go talk to your boss. And the executive director, back then at that time, his name was Bob Antone. And so I went over there, and Bob was a good friend of mine. And I said, what's going on? What did you want to see me about? And he said, well, we got this guy. He come to the lodge to get help, and he's from up by Winnipeg there. And he said he brought something with him. And he said what he brought a turtle rattle. And he said, and we look down here and we see these Myeeguns. He's got a turtle shaker here and another shell here. But us Haudenosaunee people, Myeengun people, we have a different kind of rattle. And our rattle is a snapping turtle rattle. And we say that ne jijodasama, when the earth was starting over again, like he was saying in that story, that where they put that little bit of earth, that those animals that they brought up, that they put it on the back of the turtle. That's why we refer to this place as Turtle Island. And so when they say that, they started dancing around and they made the earth grow. And so that's the kind of turtle that in our teachings, in our story, that we say it was a snapping turtle. That's the kind of turtle it was. So when we give thanks and we do our ceremonies, throughout the year, that's the kind of rattle that we use in our ceremonies, is this snapping turtle rattle. So this man from up north there, from Manitoba, that's what he had. And he says, Bob, he's telling me, he says he wants to talk to somebody that knows, something about these rattles. So he says, I know you make them. I know you make these rattles. And he says, and I know you have some teachings around them. So he says, I'm wondering if you can sit with him. So I said, yeah. I said, I can sit with him. So they had this big circle room, there at the lodge. And we went in there and made a little fire and burned tobacco. And so I said, the first thing I asked him, I said, do you know your creation story? And he says, yeah. He says, I know my creation story. And I said, okay. I said, before I say anything, I said, I want you to tell me your creation story. So he goes on for maybe about the same length, about half an hour or so, like what Myeengun did, maybe a little bit longer. And, so he agreed to tell me his creation story from up north where he come from. And when he finished telling his story, then he says, that's the way that we know it. That's the way that we were told. And he says, it's probably nothing like, your guys' story, what you guys have around here. He says, but that's the way that we know it. And I just kind of, chuckled a little bit. And I said, I'm sorry to tell you. I said, but you're wrong. I said, your story is almost exactly the same as ours. I said, there's just little bit differences in there, about some of the details. I said, but overall, I said, the stories are pretty much the same. And so that's what I told him is I talked about that turtle, that it represents this creation, and a lot of our peoples all across, well, that's what we say, Turtle Island, all across this continent, Turtle Island, that's what we call it. That's the reason why we call it that, is because when they brought that earth up from the bottom of the water, they put it on a turtle's back, because they said that when those different animals were coming forward to volunteer to see who could withstand, to bear the weight of the world. They said that the otter, he was one of them that was there. They said they pushed down on his back and he sank below the water. And the same thing with a beaver. They pushed down on his back, he sank below the water. And they said that the turtle came forward. And in our language, we say, Ganyakta, go, that great snapping turtle, that when they pushed on his back, he didn't sink under the water. And so they said that they all agreed that he was going to be the one they were going to put the earth on there. And Myeegun, he was talking about the hell diver, and in our story it's a loon. And on my necklace here, that's what I have, is I have these little loons that are on my necklace. And it's a reminder of that in the beginning, that those water birds, that they were here. And that's what they say, that the loon, that he was the leader of those water birds. And he's the one that kind of organized the meeting of all those animals, as they were trying to figure out what to do. But in our story, it talks about a woman that descended here from an upper world. And a lot of our people, they refer to her as Sky Woman. And Wedwa Chichanega, that's what we call her in our language. And it's talking about a blooming flower, or a maturing flower, a blossoming flower. That's her name, that she had a spirit name. And they said that when she came here to this earth, that she was pregnant. And then she gave birth to a daughter. And so they say that in our ways, that in our story, in our teachings, that the first two people that were here on the earth were women. And so in our culture, Haudenosaunee culture, Myeengun culture, everything about who we are comes from our women. And it's embedded right in our language. So when I introduce myself today, and I say that Lotunt Honyust, the Yunge and the Yungyats, is saying she to me, that's what the name that she gave me for people to call me. So where did that name come from? It came from my grandmother, or it comes from the clan mothers. It comes from the aunties, people within your clan family. That's where our names come from. It comes from the women's. So even when we talk about our clan mothers, that's how we refer to them. Kasana de Gundisni, that they take care of the names. So that all the new babies that are born into this world, that they all have a name. They all have purpose. They all have responsibility. And so when we talk about our grandmas, we say aksut. And when we say sasos, then what we're saying is you're saying that you're painting or you're coloring. And so they say when we say that aksut, then that's what you're saying, is that she's painting you with your colors. And she's giving you your identity. Everything about who you are is a human being that comes from your grandmother. And then I mentioned my clan, Utahiuni ni Wagita Loda, or Wagegwaho ni Wagita Loda. And I'm the Wolf clan. I'm from the Wolf clan. And so that comes from my mother. And then that comes from her mother. And that came from her mother, going back right to the beginning, when human beings were first created and our clan systems were given to us. And so that's that's the way that we understand this creation, is that those first two people that came here to the earth were women. And so in our culture, that we hold our women in high regard. And in the last couple weeks ago, we had a gathering in Six Nations called the Sing. And all day, that's what we done, is that we honored our women by singing women's dance songs all day. And then in the evening, we had a big social, for all the people, all the families that gathered there. But all of our longhouses within the Confederacy, they all descended upon Six Nations of the Grand River, Myeegun territory. And that's what we done all day, is that we sang songs that we composed to honor and to acknowledge our women. And so he said that those first two women that were here, Sky Woman and her daughter, they say that there were different spirits around, just like he was talking about, that there were different spirits that existed here on the earth. And these spirits, they started to come forward, and they wanted to marry Sky Woman's daughter. And eventually, she consented to one of them, being able to marry her daughter. And they went off, to his lodge, and when she woke up that next morning, they said that there were these two arrows crossed on her stomach. And she was looking around for her husband, and he was nowhere to be found. So she went back to her mother's lodge, and she said, "I don't know what happened." She said, "But I can't find my husband. And all I could find was these two arrows that were crossed on my stomach." And she said, "Well, what that means is it means that you're going to have twin boys." And they say that one of those arrows, it was crooked, and it had a flint end on it. And then the other arrow was straight, but it had a blunt end on it. She says, "You're going to have these twin boys." And they say that that place where they came from, where Sky Woman came from, that the children, that they didn't stay children long, that they matured really quick. And so that time came rapidly, for her daughter, to give birth. But as she was carrying those babies, that's what started to happen, was that they started to argue with each other inside her stomach, inside her womb. And the one boy, he says, "I'm going to come out our mother's side." He says, "I can kind of see a light in her side there." He said, "There must be a soft spot maybe over there on her side. I'm going to come out her side." And then his brother said, "I don't think that's a good idea to do that, because if you do that, you're going to hurt our mother. You might even kill her." He said, "There's a natural way that we're supposed to go out." And so they kept on going back and forth about what they should do. And finally, it came time for them to be born. And sure enough, that one brother came out his mother's side, and then the other brother come out the natural way. But when he came out his mother's side, then eventually that's what happened, is that she succumbed to her injuries, and she passed away. And so the grandmother, she became upset. And through all of the chaos of their childbirth, she got them confused as to which one it was that came out the natural way and which one came out the mother's side. And she gave them names. And the first one that she gave name to was, we refer to him as Talong Hiwago. And that means that he's holding up the sky. And then there's Tawi Skull. And that means that his body is covered with almost like ice. Owize is what we call ice. So they say Sawiskla. And they say that his body was covered. They say it was covered in flint, but it looked like ice. It was translucent. And so she raised them up. They didn't stay children long. And that's what they said, that they soon realized that they had power. And eventually, the grandmother, she starts to think that it was Talong Hiwago that came out his mother's side, but he was actually the one that came out the natural way. And it was his brother, Sawiskla, that he was the one that came out his mother's side and killed her. But like I said, the grandmother got them confused. And so she started to favor Sawiskla because she thought that he was the one that came out the natural way, but it was actually his brother, Talong Hiwago. So she kind of treated him funny. And they said that she made a bow for Soiskla so that he could go out and he could hunt. And then they said when Talong Hiwago, when he would ask for a bow, she would say, no, she says, just use your brother's bow. She said, I already made a bow. That's good enough, you know, between the two of you. So she wouldn't do things for him, but she would do it for Soiskla. And so they said that their father was watching all this happen. And eventually they said that Talong Hiwago borrowed that bow from his brother, and he went out hunting birds. And he seen a bird sitting in a tree. And when he shot his arrow, that arrow went around the bird, and it went and it landed behind that tree. And he was really confused because usually his arrow was right on. So he went walking past that tree to go retrieve his arrow. But then he seen that there was water there. And he was looking at it and he said, shoot, my arrow must have went in the water. So he starts wading into the water, and then he goes underneath the water. And then he sees that there's a lodge down there. And then he goes into that lodge. And then in there, then that's when he meets his father. And his father is standing there. He's holding that arrow. And he says, I'm the one that made this arrow. He said, I'm the one, you know, I'm the one that helped to bring you, to give you this life. I'm your father. He says, and I've been watching, you know, seeing what's happening. And he says, and I know that things aren't really going right with you and your grandmother, that she's treating your brother a little bit better than the way she's treating you. And so he starts to tell him that both him and his brother have this power to create things, to create life. And he says, you're going to go around, you know, as you get older and as you mature, you guys are going to go around and you're going to finish off this world. You're going to finish off, you know, the things of what was started here. And he says, and in the future, you're going to create human beings. But in order for that to happen, there's got to be everything here on the earth for them to exist upon. And that's what you and your brother, you're both going to have a hand in that. So like I said, there's balance there, you know, and some people, when they tell this story, they'll say the good twin and the evil twin. But when we tell this story in our language, it doesn't say that. It just talks about their names, Talong Hiwago and Datwani Soiskla. And so that's kind of what we say, you know, like even the daytime and the nighttime, we need both of them, you know, for life to exist, that there's got to be balance there. You know, just like the warm winds that are coming and the cold winds that we're just leaving. And that's what they say, that during those cold winds, that's Soiskla's time. You know, and that's the time when we have all of our feasts for our ancestors, our ones that have gone on. And then after we plant those seeds, when the warm weather starts and that food starts to grow, then that's what takes care of us that's here alive on the earth. So we have a time when we acknowledge our ancestors and we feed them through feasts. And then we have this growing time, you know, when the warm winds are circulating here on the earth. And so that's what they say, is that they say that Talong Hiwago, that he walks with the sun. And that because the grandmother that she favored, Soiskla, that's his time is during the nighttime. But that's what their father told them, that they were going to one day create human beings. And so they said that it was always like that. They were always competing, you know, over creation and trying to outdo each other, I guess, you know. I guess that's the easiest way to say it. But eventually they came to that time where they completed everything here on the earth that they thought that we would need. And they started to work on creating human beings. And they said that when they created us, when they created human beings, that Talong Hiwago, that he was the first one to do that. And that he created the Ungwehunwe people. And they said that what he used is that he used the red clay from the earth. That he used the earth to create our being. They say Gaya Duni, that he made a body. And then what he done is that he took that body, and they said that he took a little bit of his mind and then he put it into that little body that he made. And then they said that he took some of his blood and then he put it into that body that he made, and he wrapped it in flesh. And then they said that he took his voice and then he put that into that being that he created. And that voice, they say that he put into us, that's our language. That's what he put into us, that original voice that we have. And then they said that he took us and then he blew into that being. He blew into it 3 times. And then that being came to life and thanked him for giving him that life. And so then they say that Talong Hiwago, he went on and he started to explain about his responsibilities that was going to be here on the earth, that he provided everything that he was going to need, in his life. So when we talk about the earth, we say Ohunja. That's what we refer to the earth, the ground. They say Ohunja. So when we refer to the earth, then we say Yunkino Ha Hunja. Because they said that during that childbirth, when their mother was killed during childbirth, that's what the grandmother done, is that she took her body and she buried her here into the earth. And then from her body, that there was these different things that grew from her. And they said that from where her brain was, where her head, that's where the tobacco plants grew from. And then from where her heart was, that's where the wild strawberry plants grew from. And then from where her body was, they said that's where the 3 sisters grew from. And then by her feet, they say that's where the wild artichokes or wild potatoes, that's where they grew from. And they said everything that we would need to sustain ourselves, that was the beginning of it, that it came from our mother, the first mother. And so that's what the grandmother said. That's how you're going to refer to this earth, is you're going to refer to it as your mother, because she's going to provide everything that we would need. So that's what we refer to the earth as. We say Yunkino Ha Wohunja, our mother, the earth. So whenever it is that we say that we need something in our language, we say Ne Dawagada Hunjuni. So Ohunja is the earth. Dawagada Hunjuni. So what you're saying is you're saying that you need what was made here on the earth. So that's what you're saying, because you're referring back to the creation story. Everything that was put here in the beginning by the Creator, when he was going around creating everything, that's all that we would need in this life. But things like colonization and commercialization and consumerism, now we think, we need money. That's all we need. That's all we work towards is contributing to that economy. And our lives become so wrapped up in that we forget about the connection that we have to creation, and everything that we need comes from the earth. And so a lot of, our prophecies talk about that, like some of the things of what he was talking about, that if we forget, about our connection to creation, then that's what's going to happen. That's what our prophecies say. Then the earth is going to come to an end. And our last prophet came to us in 1799, and his name was Handsome Lake, Skanyat Dali. And he's talking about a lot of those things of what our people are going to see within the next 300 years, from 1799 up to 300 years after. That's what he said. We're going to see all of these things happen. And they talk about, some of the things of what we're seeing today. And that's what they said, that the water is going to catch on fire. And then there was chemical spills that happened, over in the States there, and that's what happened. The water was on fire. They talk about all these different things, and they said that there's going to be these buggies or these carriages going down the road with nothing pushing it, nothing pulling it. And back in 1799, nobody knew what the heck he was talking about until Henry Ford come along and invented the automobile. And then all of a sudden there's these buggies going down the roads, nothing pushing it, nothing pulling it. But they said that our people are going to like that. They said, but it's also going to take a lot of lives. So at that time in 1799, our people couldn't imagine what he was talking about. But that's one of the things of what we've come to see. And our elders today, they said that probably about half of those prophecies, what they talk about, have come true, what they talk about in there. But what they say is that some of those prophecies that they talk about, they say that this is what's going to happen if we don't take care of our relationship with the earth. And so they say that in that beginning, when human beings, when we were created, that we had the ability to communicate with creation just the same way that we're talking, the way that you can understand me tonight, right now, these words that I'm saying, that we could go out and use our language and communicate with creation, with the trees, the medicines, the animals, the birds, the waters, that we could go out there and we could talk to them, tell them what it was that we needed and offer tobacco, and then take whatever it was that we needed. And they say that when we go out and we pick medicines, that's what we're supposed to do, is we're supposed to say who we're picking the medicine for and what their illness is, so that plant knows how to work on that person that you're picking for. And so all these things, it's all connected to our language. And they say that over time, that we lost that ability for us to understand what they're saying to us. They all have their songs. The birds still all have their songs, but we can't understand what they're saying anymore. But we can take notice of it. And we know why, some of the birds, why they sing their song. Just like the robin, when the robin comes back, after they migrated down south for the winter, when they come back in the spring, they start singing their song and they're calling to the thunders to bring the rains back to replenish the earth. So we don't know what their song is saying anymore, but we know why they're singing it and who they're singing it to. And so when we see them come back, then that's what we're supposed to do, that we give thanks, we acknowledge them, that they're still carrying out their responsibility that was given to them in the beginning. So even though we kind of lost that ability to communicate, the way that we're communicating right now, they say it's still important for us to go out there and to still offer tobacco to creation, because we still remember, even though maybe we can't, hear those things, but our elders tell us that there are certain people that still can. They still can hear, what the birds are saying, what the trees are saying, what the plants are saying. Not everybody can do that anymore, but some people can. And we say that they're gifted people when they can do that, when they still have that connection, that strong connection to creation. And so that's what they tell us, is that everything that was put here, that we have a relation to it, with the earth, our mother. And then, like earlier, I was referring to the thunders as our grandfathers. We say Yeti Sutta. And then the sun, we refer to that as our eldest brother, because he was the older brother of Sky Woman. And he came here looking for her. And that's as far as he was able to travel, was up into the sky, what we could see. And they appointed him, they gave him responsibility to bring light so that things could grow here on the earth. And then again, our grandmother, the moon, they say that was the head of Sky Woman, because the twins, when they after they were born, like I said, they matured quickly. And our process for funerals is 10 days. And so they said that they knew that up in the sky world, that was how long that they waited before they took care of their relatives, was after 10 days. And then they would bury the body. And so Talung Hiwago was trying to do that for their mother, but Sawispa wanted to do things differently. He didn't want to follow what they were doing up in the sky world. And they ended up fighting over her body. And when they said that they accidentally pulled her head from the body, and then the head went up into the sky and became the moon. And so when they done that, then that's what they said, was that the relationship that we have with Talung Hiwago and Sawiskla, with their mother, because they're the ones that made us, that she became like our grandmother. And so that's how we're to refer to her, as our grandmother. And then Sky Woman, what she done is that after everything was all completed here, they said that her job was done in raising those twins. And she says, I'm going to go back to the sky world now, back to the upper world. And they said that there was medicine that she took, and then she put it on a fire, and then she jumped into the fire, and that smoke took her back up there. And then when the twins, after they finished creating human beings and giving us our original instructions and our ceremonies to use to give thanks, every time that we go through a moon cycle, because there's 13 moons in a calendar year. Even though there's only 12 months on a calendar, there's 13 months in our ways, and just like on the back of these shells, there's 13 tiles. So that's what we say, that turtle, he's really our calendar. And the reason why there's 13 moon cycles is because there's 13 tiles on the back of the earth. So if you ever look at a snapping turtle shell, that's what you'll see on there, that there's 13 tiles on there. And they represent the 13 moon phases that we go through. So every time there's a new moon, then there's something different that comes to visit us. So right now we're in that thundering moon. And so we have a ceremony. Like I said, we went to Six Nations there last week for the thunder dance ceremony. And our next ceremony that we got coming up in May is going to be our planting ceremony. And then into June, then it's strawberry ceremony. So all throughout the year, there's these different things that come to visit us at a different time, a different moon phase or a different moon. And then we have a ceremony. That's what the Creator gave to us in the beginning, so that we would always remember that relationship that we have with the earth. And so in a lot of our communities, we're fortunate that we're still able to do that. We're still able to put these ceremonies through. We're still able to speak our languages and conduct these ceremonies. And when we look at that calendar, the Gregorian calendar, the reason why they don't have 12 months on the calendar is because they think that 13 is an unlucky number. A lot of the buildings they build, there's no 13th floor because they think 13 is an unlucky number. Like I said, my birthday was the other day. My birthday's on the 13th. So I don't think it's an unlucky number. I think it's a pretty good number, especially when how it connects to creation. There's 13 new moons. And even they say around the outside of the shell, they say that there's 28 of those smaller tiles going around the outside of the shell, the rim, because there's 28 days in a lunar cycle. So everything is all there on that back of the turtle. And then they say that when we look at our hands, they say our fingers are broken into sections. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 sections on this hand. There's 14 sections on this hand. So some of them, they say that Talong Hiwago was right-handed and his brother was left-handed. Well, you put them together, they both had a hand in creating this creation, and then you have a circle. That's our cycle that we go throughout the day, the daytime and the nighttime, the warm weather, the cold weather. So there's balance there. There's always balance. And in case we ever forget, that's what they say, Creator put that right in front of us, right on our hands, so that we would always remember. So that 14 and 14, that's 28. That's one cycle, one complete cycle, for the moon. So our people, we never needed a calendar. We never needed a planner or anything like that. All we needed to do is to pay attention to creation, what was happening, and our relationship that we had with all of those beings that are out there. Our grandfathers, the thunders, our eldest brother, the sun, our grandmother, the moon, our mother, the earth, and then all of our relatives that we have living around us, the animals, the trees, the birds, the medicine plants, the waters, all of those things were all a part of the same thing. And so that's what the older people, that's what they talk to us about. That's what they remind us of, is our beginning, and they remind us of what was given to us, what was prepared for us in the beginning, so that we could have a good life. And so that's what we say whenever it is you need something. It comes from Ohonja, comes from the earth, whatever we need, to have a good life. So Tony Kawanaga, Nene Jinyochi, Nene Tunu, Ne Wagaliwayan, Dakwe, Nega, Ikanawa Nisla de Vika, Ne Jinyochi, Nene Wahanilo, Nene. So in our language, when we say that we're going to explain something the best that we can, we say dagaliwate or dagaliwate. And when we talk about the sun, then we say tehoswate, because what he's doing is that he's brightening the earth. He's providing light so that we can see, where we're going as we move about here on the earth. And so when we say that word, we say dagaliwatedo. It comes from that when we say dehoswatedo when we're talking about the sunshine. Because what we're doing in this sharing, tonight, is we're trying to brighten your understanding of our teachings and what the older people said, what they left for us, to have a better understanding of our relationship to creation. So holiwa is a reason or a matter or business. So holiwa is in there. They say galiwan. So the galiwatedon, that we're brightening the matter, or we're brightening the issue, so that you will have a better understanding of the things of what the older people, what they told us. So the things of what I shared with you this evening, it's not really, what I think, or it's not coming from my own imagination or anything like that. It's the things of what I heard the older people say. And then that's what they said, that when other people, when they ask about it, then, we try and do that for them too, so that they have a better understanding of our relationship with creation. So that's as far as I'm going to go. Like he said, we could talk about this, for a long time. And with my class where I work in Oneida, last year we went over the creation story, because we had a first year cohort, and it took us 6 weeks, 5 days a week, 2 hours a day, to go through an abbreviated version of the creation story. So there's a lot of teachings in there, and I encourage you all, to seek that out. And I went into the regular school that we have in our community, not our language school, but they have a regular school there, and there's a teacher there, and I think he was a grade 3 teacher, a grade 4 teacher, or something like that. And we were talking about the creation of human beings. And so he came up to me after, and he says, in your creation story, he says, it didn't talk about my people. And I think he was from Pakistan. That's where he was from. And he says, how come your creation story didn't talk about my people, but where we come from? And I said, well, this story that we have, this is the story that was given to our people to explain about where we come from. And I said, if your ancestry comes from Pakistan, I said, then where you're going to find the answers to your questions is you got to go back to Pakistan and learn from the elders there. And what do the elders there say, how the earth began? What is their creation story there in Pakistan? And I said, so if you want to have a better understanding of who you are and how you relate to creation, that's where you're going to find it. You might not find it with us. Maybe you're going to find a little bit of understanding from our story. Maybe there's going to be things in there that you're going to connect with. But in order for you to really, truly understand, where you come from, then you got to go back to where your people originally came from, and then seek out those teachings there. So wherever it is that your people might come from, I see a lot of different faces here this evening, and there's a lot of different, there's diversity here tonight. And that's what I encourage you to do, is that maybe in these creation stories, maybe, the questions aren't going to be answered about who you are, but, maybe you heard some things here tonight about how we relate to the earth. And that's what we were trying to accomplish here tonight, was to remind each other that no matter where we come from, and when I was talking to this teacher, that's what he said. He says, yeah, he says, when we look at the core root of our teachings, no matter where you come from on the earth, it always, tells you to be a good person, to use a good mind, to use a good heart, to have respect, to have compassion and caring for each other, to help each other, to be honest, all of these different things of what it talks about in our ways. It talks about that in your teachings as well. And then it reminds us about, where our people originated from. So our elders, they used to say that in the 4 directions, they say that people had different responsibilities in the 4 directions. And they say here on Turtle Island that our responsibility was to take care of the earth. That was what we were charged with in the beginning. And they say that where our relatives, where they come from, In our language, we say Ladihunji. And then again, that's talking about the earth, Ohunja. And so they say that the creator used a really dark earth, darker than the earth that he used to make us. And they said it was a really beautiful earth that he used to make them. And so I guess what our ancestors say, what they say where they live is where what we know today is Africa. And that they have responsibility too. And what they told us is they said their responsibility was with the water. Because of the place of where they live, water is hard to come by in some of those areas. And so that water becomes very precious to them. And so they have that responsibility to take care of the water. And then they said to the north of them, they said that that's where the Osluni comes from, the blade makers. And what they said is they said that their people, what's in Europe, the people that comes from there, that their responsibility was to take care of the fire. And then that's what they do is that they made a forge. And that's what they do is that they take, minerals and then they turn it into steel. So that's the way that we know them. That's what that name implies when we say that La Sloon, that they're making blades because they have that forge, they have that fire. And then they say, to the east, that the people there, that their responsibility is to take care of the air, to take care of the winds, to make sure that those winds continue to circulate so that the diseases, they don't become stagnant and our people become ill. And so they're responsible for movement, for the movement of the air. And so they say that we all, no matter where we come from, that we all have responsibility to this earth, whether it's the earth itself or the water or the fire or the air, that we have responsibility to those different elements, here on this earth. And so I hope that I was able to do that a little bit, to brighten the issue, to brighten the matter, and reminding each other about our relationship with creation and the responsibilities that we have. And not to let, all those things out there that are pulling at your mind, don't worry about, whether or not you have the latest pair of shoes or the latest car or the biggest TV or all that kind of stuff. Don't worry about all those kinds of things, like he was saying, every morning that you're able to get up and take that breath of life, you give thanks that you're gifted another day, because we're all going to come to that time where one day, it's not going to be like that for us. And we're going to start our journey and we're going to go back to the Creator's land. We're going to go back to the sky world. So da negative igai ka ne tuni ko wa nage ne chi chi ne tunu ne bakali wayan da gwe ne gai ka ne wa ni sla de da ne tuna to hage ne yingwa ni go.
Miigwech. Yeah.
Okay, Miigwech, Myeengun, and Nyawa, Lotunt. I told these folks that we could ask a couple questions. I hope that's still okay. You still have time. We have a pretty quiet crowd. I know for me, I just absorbed a whole lot of knowledge. And it's going to take me a little while to think about it, but I'm going to bother you later with questions on my own for sure. Thanks a lot for that. We're going to go to the question from online first. It says, you kind of spoke to this just now, actually, but what resources would you recommend for non-Indigenous folks to respectfully learn more about Earth caretaking? Please, thank you. So like what resources can people seek out for more learning, kind of following Indigenous teachings? And you did allude to people having their own teachings to their different areas and their own indigeneity to their ancestors, but maybe if we can direct folks to some more teachings similar to this one that they can use to be better stewards of the earth.
Well, for me, real quickly, to honor these teachings, I think it would be to honor yourself, to learn your own teachings that you have. Like Lotunt said, we come from different parts of the world, but I think we'll find commonality in those teachings. We all have a drum. We all have song. We all have commonalities, no matter where you come from in the earth. And so when you want to learn our teachings, we're fine to give those. But for me, I hope it inspires you to go find your own self whatever culture you come from. Because I think the way that the world is today, we've separated, we've gone to war with each other. But if we draw it all back to the original purpose that we're all brought to the earth for, I think we'll find some unity again. And that's what we're searching for as human beings. You can come and look at our culture and we're willing to share, but to honor our culture, to watch you honor yours is probably the best thing I can see. And then we'll find that sharing together. You'll find the commonalities. That's how I feel anyway.
I think, again, to address that question, part of that lays in this wampum belt here is Turo wampum. And what they talk about is they talk about when our people, when we first met with European people, when Europeans start coming to our land. And this was an agreement that was made between our two peoples. They say that originally that it was made with the French, that the French were some of the first ones that came over. And they said that what they done is, we always talk about our people, that we're always making reference to a tree, whether it's the tree of peace or the tree of life, that was here standing in the middle of this creation before the sun was created, that provided light and energy for things to grow here on the earth. But they say that our people, that we're always connected to this tree. And so that's what they say, that when they talk to the French, when the French first came here and they wanted to make peace with our people, we say that we took the rope that they had on their ship and we tied it to our tree. And that rope was going to be what bound our people together. And then they said that when the Dutch came, the Dutch were the next ones to come. They said, but this time they had a chain on their ship. And so we took the chain, and when we tied that chain to the tree, that it would what do you call that? Tether. It would tether their ship to the tree. And then they said that the last ones that came to our people was the British. And so again, we took that chain, and then we said, we're going to attach this chain to the tree. But what the British done is they said, well, we're going to take that chain. And what happened with the Dutch is that you use that chain, and that metal chain, steel chain, it can rust, and it could maybe eventually even break. So they said, what we're going to do is that we're going to give you a silver chain. And they said, this silver chain, it's never going to rust. It might tarnish, but whenever we bring that chain out, then we polish it and we renew it. And they said that that's the relationship that we're going to have between our people. And then they talk about this wampum here, and that's what they say, that one of these purple rows of wampum here, there's two of them. They call it the gaswanta. That's what we call it in our language, the Turo wampum. Degnio ha de gaswanta, the Turo wampum. And so they said that the one row, that it represents the ship of the Europeans. And everything of what's inside there is what the Creator gave to their people. So their laws, their belief systems, their languages, their songs, everything about who they are is in their ship, in their vessel. And then they say that everything of what the Creator gave to us is here in our canoe. Our language, our beliefs, our songs, our medicines, everything of what the Creator gave to us to live upon this earth in a good way. That's what's in this canoe. And then they say that we're traveling along this river of life together. And they say that's what the white represents, that there's going to be peace between our people. And so that's what they say. The three, what they represent is, as long as the grass grows, as long as the rivers flow, as long as the sun is shining, that's how long this is going to be binding. And so, when we come across questions like that, then that's why I said, when I was talking to that teacher, I said, everything that you need, is going to be, in that vessel, where you come from, whether, you're European of descent or from some other country, everything, the answers to who you are is going to be in your vessel, from your part of the world that the Creator gave to your people. So I guess, when we have that understanding, the best way for maybe non-Indigenous people to support or to learn about who we are is to learn about this, agreement that we have between each other. And that's what the older people say, is they say that these are two straight lines that they don't ever cross or intersect. And so that's what that means, is that the ones that are in here, whether it's the Germans or the French or the Dutch or the British, that they're not supposed to come and try and steer our vessel. They're not supposed to try and come and steer our canoe, or they're not supposed to come over here into ours. And then vice versa, that we're not supposed to try and, steer their vessel either, and tell them what to do, that we were going to coexist side by side in peace. And so that's kind of what this represents, is that we have that understanding about each other, and that way we can walk, together on this road of life, side by side, but in peace, and understanding. So I think that's probably the best answer that I can come up with, for that question.
Miigwech. No other questions from our online audience, but there are many comments of thanks, many thanks. Nyawa, Miigwech, everyone has found this so valuable. I will give our live audience opportunity. Does anybody have anything they'd like to know about now? If not, can you two tell these folks maybe how they can get a hold of you, or maybe ask some questions or have some discussions that maybe they want to have later or more quietly?
Smoke signals.
That's the original internet. We created it. It turned into the internet. So
What if they make fried bread? Will that work? Would you smell it and come?
Come floating through the air like Bugs Bunny. Yeah.
Okay, folks, with that, and being mindful of time, and Lotunt has traveled to be here with us, just on behalf of U Waterloo Office of Indigenous Relations, I'm going to say thanks to all of you for coming. Thanks to all of you in the computer for watching and joining us. And Chi Miigwech, Myeengun, Nyawagoa to Lotunt. It's been really great, very informative, and really grateful for you. Miigwech.
Yep.